Hi everyone, my name is Isaiah Real. Welcome to the Real Sense Retirement Show, the first episode of 2020. To begin the new year, to begin the new decade, I want to share with you three major highlights to begin this year. I'll share them with you, and then I'll go over them with you in more detail. The first is 2020. It's an election year. So what should we be paying attention to in the stock market? What should we be paying attention to in sectors in this year? I went back and did some research historically speaking, so I'm going to share that with you as to what's happened in the stock markets, what's happened in sectors during these years. The second thing I want to go over is that this economy not done growing just quite yet. So I'm going to share some information with you there. And number three is what sectors were very good in 2019. So what were the winning sectors in 2019 and what sectors should we be looking at for this year in 2020 and beyond? So without further ado, let's get started. It's an election year, it's 2020. Let me start with this. It's an article from February 2016 from Ann Kate Smith. It's a Kiplinger article, and what she said was, since 1833, the Dow Jones Industrial Average has gained an average of 10.4% in the year before an election, and nearly 6% on average in election years. Well, I did some research, and granted, I didn't do the Dow Jones, I did the S&P, but the S&P 500 on average was up last year roughly 29%, so we just blew past that 10.4%. Granted, she put a wide margin on there. That's from 1833. But last year was a great year in the stock market. And then a lot of analysts this year, professionals, think that we may see high single digits, low double digits returns for the stock market this year during the election year. So that's a little bit higher than that 6% average. So historically speaking, it tends to be positive during this year, during the presidential election year. So could it be a good thing for our portfolios? Of course, we'll wait and see. But historically speaking, it's been positive. Took it a step further, I want to see, what sectors did well during these years, specifically during election years. Went back to 2012 when Obama was reelected. Consumer cyclicals was number one. Makes sense. Those are sectors that do very well when the economy is doing well. And remember, the economy was just picking back up after the Great Recession. So that was number one. Number two was healthcare. Affordable Care Act went into effect a couple years before that. So it was a very positive thing for the healthcare sector. And number three was communication services. Surprising. Technology was number 7 back in 2012. Moving forward to 2016, when Trump was elected, financials was number 1, technology was number 2, and industrials was number 3. If we remember, Trump was talking a lot about a tax cut. He wanted to put a tax cut to the big corporations, big banks, financials, that's big corporations. They love that. Of course, that did go into effect. The banks did love that. Financials was number 1. Number 2 is technology. Let's remember, technology was a major force in the 10s decade, but it was just becoming the big behemoth it is now back then, so it makes sense. In industrials, Trump wanted to give more contracts to these guys, and he's continued to do so since his presidential election. And then 2020. So far, technology is number 1, industrials is number 2, financials is number 3. Those are the same 3 sectors that we saw in 2016. Haven't changed going into 2020. I'll go over that with you in more detail in a few minutes. But taking a step forward, if we look at these presidential cycles, when Obama was president for 4 years, when Trump was president for the last 4 years, those sectors I mentioned were typically the same during those 4 years. In the sense of, what I mean by that is, these sectors were predominantly the top 3 or top 4 sectors during that president's 4 years in office. And so that's something to take a look at. Moving forward, second thought, growth remains in America. Like I mentioned, growth is not done just quite yet. We're in the longest economic recovery on record. We're in the 128th consecutive month of growth. For the first 7 years of this growth time, from mid 2009 to mid 2016, we saw a 2.2% growth rate. from GDP. That's increased to 2.6 since then, so the economy has gotten stronger. On top of that too, we have the lowest unemployment rate in the last 50 years. So hey, why is that? Why do we think that? I love to read First Trust Portfolio's work, and they had some couple thoughts there, and they thought, hey, a little bit because of this growth acceleration is because of better regulatory policy and also too lower tax rates. When these tax rates went into effect, a lot of the people out there thought this was going to be temporary, that these tax rates may be a good thing for a year or two, but that's it. First Trust thinks, hey, you know what? Not so fast. So let's take a step back. Let's look exactly actually in the sense of, due to the tax law, what are the incentives to work? What about investment? What about how these businesses are run now? They're run more efficiently because of what's happening. And so I thought that was interesting, that does help with this growth rate in the sense of, a lot of people thought this tax cut was just going to be a temporary thing. It's gotten better. A lot of these companies have focused on reinvesting their businesses, whether that's stock buybacks, improving their services, improving their technology, improving, how they how they make that product for themselves. And so this tax cut has been a beneficial thing for these corporations very well. On top of that, people were saying, well, you know what? Why are we buying more plant equipment? Why are we buying more machinery? Shouldn't we be doing that? Because isn't that how these companies work? First Trust did the same thing. Hey, let's take a step back. The world's changing. Companies are changing. People don't want to buy plant and equipment anymore. If we could be more efficient by improving our technology and our software and stuff like that, then they're going to do that. So instead of buying the new shiny toy out there, they figure out how to use the computers and the networks more effectively. And that's helped us be more efficient with the way these businesses are run and to help produce that higher acceleration and growth. And that's what First Trust Portfolios think. So that was an interesting take. Number 3, winning sectors during 2019 and where to look for 2020. So according to Dorsey, Wright and Associates, all major indexes, market ETFs, the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, the equally weighted S&P, the actual S&P 500, all of them were in positive trends, all of them were in buy signals to end the year, and they all are to begin 2020. Taking a look back in 2019, 23 different groups of individual sectors outperformed the S&P 500. The top one was gaming, surprisingly, biomedics, genetics, semiconductors, drugs, and healthcare groups. When we take a step back and look at the performance for all of 2019, we find that semiconductors was the biggest gainer of that year. They averaged roughly about 62% and change. So it's a big thing. Looking forward into 2020, the major sectors are technology, it's financials, it's industrials. When we look at technology, semiconductors is still the number one place. You can look into software too as well, and the major technology sector as a whole. The second best industry right now, or sector I should say, is industrials. That's aerospace, that's defense. Those major ETFs are a big place to be. The big stocks too as well, the Lockheed Martins of the world. Number 3 is financials. Those continue to remain doing very well. You can look at those major financial sector ETFs or the financial sector as a whole. So those are the major sectors that are doing well for this year. We talked about that with Trump's election. We possibly could see those be at the top for quite some time if he is reelected. So without further ado, that's what I wanted to share with you today. With any questions, any thoughts, feel free. Give me a call, let me know, message me, email me. Changing something new now. We're going to be doing this video. We're going to be doing it in a blog format so you can read it on written document if you want to. And I'm going to be going into more detail about what I talked about today in a podcast format. So if you want to have a long form version of this, I'm going to go into more detail on certain things. Stay tuned for the podcast. So, hey, look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.